In late May of 1940, more than 400,000 Allied soldiers found themselves trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, a small French coastal town, pinned against the sea by advancing German forces with seemingly no way out. Historians and military strategists on both sides believed the trapped army was finished, facing either annihilation or mass surrender within days. What happened instead became one of the most remarkable rescue operations in military history, an event so unlikely that even those who lived through it struggled to fully explain how it succeeded. By the spring of 1940, Germany's invasion of France and the Low Countries had unfolded with terrifying speed. German armoured divisions, employing fast-moving tank warfare tactics that caught Allied commanders almost completely off guard, had cut through French and Belgian defences and swept around the Allied forces stationed in Belgium, effectively trapping the British Expeditionary Force, along with large numbers of French and Belgian troops, against the English Channel with their backs to the sea and no clear route of retreat. Within days, German forces had encircled the trapped Allied armies almost entirely, pushing them into an increasingly narrow pocket of territory surrounding the port town of Dunkirk. Military analysts on both sides largely agreed the situation was catastrophic for the Allies. An entire army representing a significant portion of Britain's professional military force appeared to be on the verge of complete destruction or capture, a loss that many historians believe could have fundamentally altered Britain's ability to continue the war at all, given how few trained soldiers the country would have had remaining to defend against a feared German invasion of the British mainland itself. Then, in what remains one of the most debated decisions of the entire war, German forces paused their advance. Adolf Hitler, along with several senior German commanders, issued an order halting the tank divisions positioned to deliver what most military analysts believed would have been a decisive, likely fatal blow to the trapped Allied forces. Historians have never fully agreed on why this order was given. Some point to German commanders' legitimate concerns about overextending their tank divisions after a rapid advance across difficult terrain, worried about exposing them to a counterattack. Others suggest Hermann Göring's confident assurances that the German Air Force alone could finish off the trapped army from the air, making a costly ground assault unnecessary. Still others have suggested political motivations, theorizing Hitler may have hoped a devastated but not annihilated Britain might be more inclined to negotiate peace rather than continue fighting a war he still hoped to avoid escalating further. Though this theory remains speculative and contested among historians studying the decision. Whatever the true reasoning, the pause, lasting critical days, gave Allied forces a narrow window they would not have otherwise had. British commanders, recognizing the extraordinary danger facing their trapped army, launched an emergency evacuation effort codenamed Operation Dynamo, initially hoping to rescue perhaps 30,000 to 45,000 soldiers before German forces resumed their advance and the operation became impossible. The plan called for using Royal Navy destroyers and larger vessels to ferry soldiers from Dunkirk's harbour back across the English Channel to Britain, but the harbour itself had been heavily damaged by German bombing, severely limiting how many large ships could dock and load troops directly. Facing this bottleneck, British officials made an unprecedented decision, issuing a public call for civilian boat owners across southern England to voluntarily bring their own vessels to help evacuate soldiers directly from the beaches, where larger warships couldn't safely approach due to shallow water. What followed became one of the most enduring images of British wartime history. Hundreds of civilian vessels, fishing boats, small pleasure yachts, ferries, and even small motorboats, crewed in many cases by their civilian owners rather than trained naval personnel, crossed the English Channel under direct threat of German bombing and strafing attacks to help ferry stranded soldiers from the beaches to larger ships waiting offshore, or in some cases carrying soldiers the entire distance back to English shores themselves. Over the course of roughly 9 days, from late May into early June of 1940, this combined effort of naval vessels and civilian boats, later remembered collectively as the Little Ships of Dunkirk, managed to rescue an estimated 338,000 Allied soldiers, dramatically exceeding even the most optimistic initial projections, though the evacuation came at a significant cost, with numerous ships sunk by German aircraft and artillery, and thousands of soldiers killed during the evacuation itself, unable to reach safety in time. Winston Churchill, delivering a speech to the British Parliament shortly after the evacuation concluded, famously cautioned against viewing the event purely as a triumph, reminding the public that wars were not won through evacuations, however remarkable, and that the true test still lay ahead. Yet the successful rescue of the vast majority of the trapped army preserved the core of Britain's trained military force, providing experienced soldiers who would go on to form the foundation of Allied forces fighting in North Africa, and eventually returning to mainland Europe years later during the D-Day invasion of Normandy. Historians continue to debate how differently the war might have unfolded had the evacuation failed, or had Hitler's pause not granted the Allies those critical days. Some argue Britain's capacity to continue resisting Nazi Germany at all, let alone eventually contribute meaningfully to the Allied victory years later, depended directly on the unlikely success of an operation that, by every conventional military expectation, should have ended in disaster rather than survival. What remains most remarkable about Dunkirk, beyond the military strategy and political decisions involved, is the image of ordinary civilians, fishermen, weekend sailors, and small boat owners with no military training, voluntarily crossing a war zone in their own small vessels to save strangers they had never met. A detail that transformed what could have been remembered simply as a catastrophic military defeat into what British popular memory has, ever since, called the Miracle of Dunkirk. If stories like this, where history's darkest moments produced its most unexpected acts of collective courage, are exactly what you come here for, subscribe to The Grave Details, because history holds far more stories like this than most people ever learn.